welcome to the toughest race of the year, as we've been hearing. Soaring temperatures, chronic dehydration, a lot of long, high G-force corners really sap the energy. It's a supreme test of a driver's fitness. And to make things even more difficult this weekend, heavy rain, as we heard last night, has washed away all the rubber which had built up over free practice on Friday and yesterday's qualifying session. And so the track is now more abrasive. There's less grip out there. The tyres will therefore slide around more, and that means the tyre degradation will be huge this afternoon. And some teams will deal with it better than others. It will certainly add a considerable variable, I think, to the racing we're going to see this afternoon. And as David Coulthard was just telling us, different teams choosing to run either the soft tyre to start with or the hard tyre. Remind you that they have to use both specifications of Bridgestone tyre. It's a new rule for 2007. So as everybody will be doing a two-stop race here this afternoon, they'll either do two stints on the hard and one on the soft, or the other way around. But they've got to use both of them, and I think there could be some gambles going right and some gambles going wrong here this afternoon. We've also got a threat of rain. We talk about it every year here in Sepang. Sometimes it comes and sometimes it doesn't. Of course, when it does, it is pretty spectacular. But just talking to one or two of the teams, they believe that there's a good chance of some rain an hour into this Grand Prix, which is around about lap 36, which intriguingly is around about the time of the second round of pit stops. So it could stir things up quite a bit. There's a rather disgruntled Rubens Barrichello. He'll be starting this Grand Prix from the pit lane, having been forced to change an engine. And so he was basically being moved to the back of the grid. He's going to use that for tactical reasons, refueling reasons, to start from the pit lane. Well, it certainly looks as though McLaren, with a lot of hard work back at the Woking factory, have moved themselves closer to Ferrari. Just take a look at that grid. Alonso on the front row again, but of course, remember in Australia, Massa was hampered with an engine problem, with having to go to the back of the grid. So he was not able to put up a fight there. Here he was, and he has been the faster of the two Ferrari drivers all weekend, but Alonso able to mix it with them, and that is crucial. McLaren believing that as the season goes on, they will get closer and closer. And Raikkonen a little bit unhappy with the balance of his car. We believe he's got a bit more fuel in. Lewis Hamilton told us he's got more fuel than his teammate. We saw Heidfeld and Rosberg both doing excellent jobs again. Two Toyotas in the top 10. Mark Webber again gets the Red Bull up there. Look at that though, the two Renaults, Kovalainen and Fisichella, outside the top 10. Really struggling with that car to get any grip around this racetrack, and of course they've dominated this event for the last 2 years. There you can see Coulthard, Button and Davidson, three British drivers outside the top 10. Button really struggling with this Honda. A lot of work going on back at the Brackley factory to sort that out, but it's pretty fundamental what's wrong with that car, and it's going to take some time to fix it. There is Kimi Raikkonen on the second row of the grid. He won 3 weeks ago in Australia, came here with a lot of confidence, but Martin, he's not really seemed all weekend to quite have the pace of Felipe Massa. When they were both running with low fuel, it seemed as though there was perhaps a couple of tenths of a second in it, maybe 3 tenths, but you expect Massa to still have the upper hand throughout the race?
Well, Massa had the upper hand all through winter testing, curiously didn't in Australia, and his chin dropped when Raikkonen just suddenly turned it on qualifying day in Australia. But of course here, that hasn't happened, and Massa does appear to be slightly the faster driver. We'll check out the fuel, and there are the soft tyres then, that's the answer. And congratulations to Bridgestone, the FIA and the teams for coming up with that solution, the white line in one of the grooves to let us know whether they're on or which tyres they're on. Let's have a look. And soft tyres also for Fernando Alonso. So the guys at the front want the pace. That'll give them maybe another 5 meters of grip. They're pushing Alonso back so he can turn off the traction control, spin his rear tyres up and lay some fresh rubber onto this washed grid. And clearly at the front, in fact most of them then have got the midfield have got harder tyres, and most of the runners have gone for the softer tyre. They're gambling that they won't just fall apart on this freshly washed racetrack. It is Felipe Massa's 4th pole position. He's absolutely right, of course. My data says 3 plus the one he got here. And well, let's see how he goes and if he is allowed to beat Kimi Raikkonen today, which I'm pretty sure he will be. Just wanted to hear it from him, really. We're hearing that only Jarno Trulli in the Toyota is on the hard tyres.
Well, it is a very interesting scenario having two Ferrari drivers who are equally competitive. We haven't seen it for a very long time, and of course in the Michael Schumacher era it was unheard of for anybody to contest his World Championship with him. He definitely had the rub of the green within the team. Now it's a very different situation, and of course there will come a time, today may be that day, maybe it'll be a bit further down the road, where the team have to make a call, and one of the drivers is going to win the race and the other one isn't. And with two highly competitive drivers, you can see Raikkonen leading the World Championship as we go into this event. If Massa takes 10 points here today, they're going to be even Stevens going forward throughout this season. I think that's going to be one of the most interesting aspects of the 2007 Championship. Of course, if McLaren are able to get up there and challenge them as well for race wins, the fact that Massa and Raikkonen are taking wins off each other will make things very, very interesting indeed. First time that McLaren have led the Constructors' Championship since 2005. We see that quite often on the parade lap. It does look like an engine blow-up, but often it's just an overfill on the oil.
Red Bull, I see, are on hard tyres as well. I think that was Mark Webber, and I understand David Coulthard was going to start on hard. Surprisingly, that looks like the minority option out there. I think if you're at the front and you can drive more smoothly, you'll get away with it. As I was starting to say, the soft tyre may give you 5 metres down to the first corner, extra acceleration. And of course, the big squabble between Ferrari and McLaren down into that turn 1 is going to be absolutely thrilling. So a bit of extra grip from those tyres might just be very welcome. And of course, they were all pretty intensively using the softer tyre yesterday, so they haven't got too many spare sets of brand new ones.
On board with Raikkonen. One of the things we have seen here at Sepang and the test that went on last week here and again during the free practice is that the performance of these soft tyres drops off dramatically after the first lap, and so it's going to be very interesting to see how they struggle with the tyres until they start to come back again after about 5 or 6 laps of performing less. And of course it drops off more and more as the degradation happens, with this track being such a real killer of tyres. Here's Lewis Hamilton.
Okay, Lewis, everything looks good. Everything looks good. Okay, Lewis, if you could warm your brakes a bit more. Warm your brakes a bit more.
Are they okay?
Brakes are good, Lewis. Brakes are good. A yellow G1, yellow Golf 1, and remember a bi-point find before the grid.
Lewis Hamilton showed us what he was made of in Australia at the start, ducking round his teammate and beating him into the first corner. This first corner here in Malaysia is an altogether different prospect. It's a very tricky one, and those of you who followed Grand Prix racing for a while will recall back in 2002 Michael Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya hitting each other in turn 2. We've had quite a lot of bumps and bangs into that corner over the years. It's a hairpin right followed by a tight left, sequence 1 and 2, and well, that's one of the most exciting parts of this racetrack. The grid forming up now.
Yes, they're telling Lewis he's spinning his wheels up with no traction control to warm the rear tyres, but remember to go back to the right settings for the launch control to get off the line.
Massa on the right of your screens, Alonso on the left with Hamilton behind him, 2 Ferraris on the right, 2 McLarens on the left, and the Malaysian Grand Prix is go! Hard to tell from this angle, but Massa's got the jump, but Alonso's down the inside of him, wheel to wheel. It's going to come down to some bravery here. Hamilton tucks in behind Raikkonen. Is he going to be brave here? Yes, he is. He takes 1 Ferrari. Alonso takes the lead. Hamilton's looking at Massa now. He's going round the outside of him. The rookie, the 22-year-old from Stevenage, is having a go, and he's passed him. Hamilton up to second place. Alonso leads. It's a McLaren 1-2 on the opening lap at Sepang. But look at the Ferrari coming back at him now.
Brilliant getaway then by the 2 McLarens, and Hamilton, I thought he was taking a big risk around the outside, but Massa, big incident going on in turn 4 at the back of the field. Could well be a safety car situation. Lots of yellow flags at the moment, of course, but well, there's still a lot of cars on track, so probably only 2 or 3 ended up in the gravel. It is very much in the firing line of the braking zone into that turn 4, so let's see if they feel the need to bring the safety car out.
Alonso leads as Kovalainen goes up the inside of the Red Bull there. Alonso leads, Hamilton second, Massa third, 4th is Raikkonen, 5th is Heidfeld, 6th Kubica, 7th Rosberg, 8th Fisichella, 9th Trulli, 10th is Kovalainen. We just saw him passing Mark Webber. That drops the Australian down to 11th place.
Well, we know that Hamilton it's Sutil there for Spiker in the gravel trap. We know that Lewis Hamilton went home last night and watched about 6 Formula 1 starts on the video, and he certainly paid attention to what he saw, because he pulled that one off beautifully. Alonso from Hamilton, Massa, Raikkonen, big fight going on in the midfield there between the Super Aguri and the two Toro Rossos.
Yep, it's Anthony Davidson battling with Liuzzi and Scott Speed. As at the front, Hamilton coming under a lot of pressure now from Felipe Massa. There is a team game to be played here by Lewis Hamilton. Certainly letting Alonso get away a bit would be helpful for the McLaren race effort. And of course the two Ferraris boxed up behind each other. Now, one thing that a lot of the drivers are saying this year, Martin, is it's really hard with these cars to follow another. It's like a cushion of air is behind the car in front. You can't get so close. It's very, very difficult.
Well, it's absolutely no surprise. They get more and more bits and pieces hanging off them. Appendages all over them. Must have 30 or 40 devices on the exterior of those cars, developed in a wind tunnel. And then, of course, as soon as you put another car in front of it, they don't work properly and the car doesn't handle. They've got to get rid of all that lot if they want a Formula 1 car to follow another closely. Massa knows he needs to dispatch Lewis Hamilton very quickly. When he sees the replay of turns 1 and 2, he'll wonder just how he let Hamilton through there.
We've still got yellow flags out on the circuit as Rubens Barrichello battles with the Toro Rosso there. That's Barrichello coming through from 20th place. Remember, he started from the pit lane. And this is a real test now for the Ferrari strategists. Ross Brawn is no longer with the team. He's on a sabbatical. And Luca Baldisseri, who was his number 2 for many, many years, is now charged with making these decisions. Ross has complete faith in him, which is why he promoted him after he moved. But it's going to be a stern test for him now to figure out how he deals with the threat from these two McLarens. I don't know if Ross is watching this. I know he was in New Zealand as the Super Aguri goes side by side here with the Toro Rosso, and that's a pass. Sato on the Liuzzi, I believe, who dives into the pit lane. So Alonso leading and pulling away. 2.5 seconds the gap at the end of the last lap. Hamilton second, Massa third, Raikkonen fourth. Almost 4 seconds now behind race leader Alonso. This is working very nicely for McLaren.
All the Brits made places off the grid. Hamilton 4th up to 2nd, Coulthard up to 12th from 13th, Davidson up to 15th, Button up to 16th, so at least they all got away well. And Liuzzi then, possibly he tripped over the spiker of Sutil in that turn 4 incident on the opening lap. And there seems a bit of uncertainty as to whether that car's ready to go. And off he goes.
He just doesn't seem to get much luck, does he, Tonio Liuzzi? He came into Formula 1, everyone was saying he was just untouchable in go-karts. He was a Red Bull protege on the way up. He won the feeder series for Formula 1, as it then was Formula 3000. Just now, of course, GP2. He won that very easily. And yet, in Formula 1, he just seems to have been walking in treacle. He doesn't seem to be able to make his presence felt. And more bad luck for him here in Sepang. Look at this gap now between Alonso and Hamilton.
Hamilton's got a car that's a bit loose at the back end. It's sliding around, getting some oversteer. I think that's why he's backing the Ferraris up. And Alonso's getting away at about 1 second per lap at the moment. Although Hamilton's closing it down a bit this time around. Hamilton under pressure. Massa's going to have to go the long way around. Amusingly, he was tightening his seatbelt as he was doing it. And is there going to be enough space? He won't do it. Can Hamilton hang on to the inside line? He surely will, because he's hung Massa out to dry on the dirty line. And Raikkonen fancies a bit of the action.
Yeah, Raikkonen's getting a bit frustrated there, back in 4th place. They're losing over 1 second a lap now to Alonso. The gap up to 4 seconds. Massa dives down the inside. Hamilton couldn't see that coming. But he goes back up the inside again. Beautiful move by Lewis Hamilton. What courage. And now Raikkonen, who we know from the past with Montoya, is not afraid of going wheel to wheel with his teammate. Gets alongside Massa, but has to give the corner away.
Well, I said to Massa on the start line, is he going to be able to fight his teammate Raikkonen? And his team boss Jean Todt said, you can ask some good questions if you want, but I think that's absolutely the right question today. Just where will Massa stand with Raikkonen leading the World Championship? And we know exactly the answer now.
Well, if you believe the stories in the paddock, one of those drivers is being paid 5 times as much money as the other. Raikkonen, of course, earning the most.
Hamilton didn't really get away that well, and he's way behind Raikkonen at the moment, and he's going to take 2 Ferraris in the first 2 corners. So there's Alonso taking the lead. Hamilton squeezes up the inside and keeps it nicely under control. And I think Massa's so busy watching Alonso, he doesn't notice Hamilton, but he still should easily have kept Hamilton at bay. On board then with Lewis, and as you see, he's well into 4th place there, probably under pressure from the BMW. Jinx right around, I mean, that's pretty brave stuff, isn't it? Jinx right around Raikkonen. Now Massa's got to gut the inside this time. He cannot try the outside line again. And Lewis saw it coming.
Yeah, that was a very comprehensive piece of defensive driving by Hamilton. An amazing performance by him. This is lap 5 of the Malaysian Grand Prix, and you sense that something is around the corner here. Massa's already had a go at Hamilton. Raikkonen's had a go at Massa, and we've got 52 long laps to go here. We understand in terms of the fuel strategies, most people are going to be coming in around about lap 20, but we heard Lewis Hamilton saying on the just before the race that he's carrying more fuel than his teammate, and we just don't know where the Ferraris are relative to the McLarens. That's going to be very interesting this afternoon. They will be hoping they're carrying more fuel and can capitalise, but look how twitchy the back of Lewis Hamilton's car is.
Yeah, Lewis is under pressure. He's now 5 seconds behind his teammate, and we're halfway around lap 5, and Massa looking increasingly frustrated. He's just got to calm down, hook up to the gearbox of that McLaren. He is both faster in a straight line and much better under braking. This is the first corner incident where Sutil appeared to slam down the side of Jenson Button. Button looks like he got away with it, and that is why I'm assuming this is a replay up into turn 4, and this is us. We're going to go wide on board with Felipe Massa, and Hamilton in textbook style ducks back underneath. This is another view from Hamilton's car. There goes the Ferrari, and we'll have that place back. Thank you.
Well, after that incident, Jenson Button is running in 17th place. Anthony Davidson 15th. David Coulthard is in 12th place. Back at the front, a little lock up there from Lewis Hamilton. The back of the car sliding a lot now. And his last lap for 1:38.5, pretty much the same sort of lap time as he did before.
Lewis is going to be under big pressure here, James. Sorry to cut across. He's going to be under big pressure into turn 4. He was really out of line through 1 with that lock-up, and then out of line through 3. And now he's going defensive. This time, Massa will hold him out, surely. Oh, come on, Felipe. That was poor. You had it covered, and you didn't keep your head.
That is not really the move of a world champion. We've seen Felipe Massa developing so much in the last few years. As you memorably said the other night, you wouldn't have trusted him to drive your hire car a couple of years ago, and now look at him running up the front. And yet there was an example of that impetuousness that Ferrari and the discipline of Ferrari have not yet been able to drill out of him. He's off the racetrack, he's back on again, but he's lost places. He's certainly lost a place to Raikkonen, and I think he lost a place to Heidfeld as well. We'll see in a moment. Alonso then is still at the front. Let's take another look at that.
Yeah, well, he had it covered now. Felipe had the move. As soon as Lewis locked his brakes, Felipe Massa had it all covered. Now what he's got to do is brake actually a little bit earlier and just hang Lewis out to dry, and his teammate would have probably gone through as well. Instead, he loses out to the BMW of Heidfeld, I believe, then also gets through there. So impetuous stuff there from Felipe Massa. Does Heidfeld get through?
Yep.
Yes, he does.
Looks like it. That's Raikkonen in 3rd place. Heidfeld is 4th, and Massa has it all to do now in 5th place. We'll take a look at how much time he lost. He was just half a second behind Hamilton, obviously, at the end of the last lap. And as he goes through now, he is 5 seconds. No, he's not. He's 6 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. There's Kubica and I beg your pardon, Nico Rosberg. That is the battle for 6th and 7th places. And it's been a very impressive performance by the Williams team. They finished 7th, of course, in Australia with Rosberg. Great drive there. He's been on form here as well in Sepang. And just going across now to the BMWs and getting more and more competitive with every race. Williams back on form, and Ted Kravitz has some news for us.
Yeah, Rubens Barrichello has overtaken Jenson Button down the field, James. Button he hasn't reported any damage from that knock that he got early on, but he felt he was holding Rubens up like in Australia, so he's let Rubens past.
Jensen looking quite slow at the moment though, as Raikkonen moves in on the back of Lewis Hamilton, who's now 7.5 seconds behind his teammate. Looking on the left hand side of your screen, you can see Fisichella made up 4 places. The legendary Renault start getting him straight up to 8th position there. But it's interesting, in qualifying, all of the customer teams beat the works teams. The Red Bull beat the Renault, the Super Gurry beat the Honda, and of course Williams beat the works Toyotas.
See, it was a good start for Wirtz, a poor start for Sato, but an absolutely cracking start for both McLaren drivers, and that is why we are in the situation we are in now. It's lap 8 just starting. Alonso is leading Hamilton by 8.1 seconds. Raikkonen is third, having seen his teammate Felipe Massa try a move on Lewis Hamilton, get it wrong, go off the track, and look how much time Massa has lost. He is now 12, almost 13 seconds behind race leader Alonso, and that is a lot to make up. And of course, the advantage that Ferrari had over McLaren in race conditions is probably, I don't know, half a second a lap, something like that. And the longer that Alonso can stay out front here, he's going to build himself a margin that even sooner or later, even Raikkonen won't be able to bridge.
So this is what impresses me about Hamilton, is that, you know, you would have thought it had been him that went off the track with the smoky front tyres, wouldn't you? Not Felipe Massa. Lewis does appear to be able to keep his head under pressure. I mean, I was watching him down the pit straight just then. 50% of the pit straight looking in his mirror. He's under enormous pressure now. He knows he's on his back foot. Doesn't appear to really, at this phase of the Grand Prix anyway, have a particularly good car. And this will be the 2 Hondas. This is Barrichello finding his way past Jensen Button. Be surprised if Jensen releases him in here, but it's up to turn 4. It's fine, it's the right place to do it. Just eases off and lets Rubens through on the racing line.
Something he wasn't able to do in Australia, to his enormous frustration early on in the race. Looking at Alex Wirtz and Scott Speed, that's the battle over 14th and 15th place, and that's Wirtz passing for 14th. Looking back from Toyota to Alex Wirtz, it's Ralf Schumacher looking back at Wirtz, and he goes through from the looks of it. Yes, he does. So Wirtz is on the move here. He's seeing his teammate Rosberg put in a strong performance, realises he needs to show he's got the pace as well. He's under a bit of pressure as Alex Wirtz.
I wonder how long Kimi Raikkonen's Ferrari can keep shadowing in these heat conditions the McLaren of Lewis Hamilton. There's one Ferrari engine that doesn't appear to have enjoyed the conditions.
Christian Albers in the Spiker. They brought a whole new aerodynamic kit here this weekend to try and bridge the gap to the other teams as they try and get across, but everybody's made progress since the first race, some more than others. Toro Rosso have made progress, but I tell you, McLaren have made a lot of progress, and that's why they're in the situation they're in right now. Alonso leading Hamilton, nearly 9 seconds now the margin. Raikkonen third. We're on board with Massa, who's kicking himself after making that mistake. Almost 14 seconds behind race leader Alonso now. And you were talking about the temperature of Raikkonen's engine. Let's not forget that this is the same engine that he won the race in Melbourne with. In the closing stages of that Grand Prix, their engine man Gilles Simon told us after the race he had a water leak and the temperatures were going pretty high. So there was some concern before we arrived here in Sepang. He may have to change the engine. He didn't. It's the same engine, but he won't want to be getting too hot this afternoon.
I kind of expected Massa to cruise up and nail that BMW quite quickly, but he hasn't done so. It's the classic problem of the just about half second behind in the turbulent air and can't make any further progress. And that's exactly where Kimi Raikkonen is planted at the moment, in the dirty, hot air of Lewis Hamilton.
Well, there are overtakes like Wirtz on Ralf Schumacher, we've seen before, where there's no championship at stake, you're racing for position, you try and pass, you want to finish as high as you can. When you're fighting for the world championship, like Massa is, like Raikkonen, Hamilton and Alonso, you can't afford to take the chance, can you, to run it up the inside and have a wheel knocked off. You cannot afford to score no points in a Grand Prix. It's a completely different situation from the Wirtzes and the Ralf Schumachers of this world, who can run one up the inside and see what happens.
Masterclass going on by Fernando Alonso up front now on lap 10, 9.6 seconds clear, and pretty consistently extending that by the thick end of a second every time he circulates. And Hamilton doesn't look like the car's coming to him. He's still really on his back foot. They're doing a great job for the McLaren team. He's defending his teammate against the Ferraris.
absolutely textbook stuff. On board with Felipe Massa, making a lot of adjustments to his seat belts and various other things. We saw that earlier on, taking his hands off the wheel a lot. Okay, this is lap 10 then. Alonso almost 10 seconds clear of teammate Hamilton in second place. Raikkonen for Ferrari has some thinking to do. How is he going to get back on terms with Fernando Alonso? Heidfeld fourth is holding up Massa in fifth, and Kubica rounds out the top six. We're concentrating on the battle at the front, but there is a tremendous scrap going on. We saw a little of it earlier on, the 6th and 7th places between Kubica and Rosberg. Hopefully we'll catch a bit more of that later on. Meanwhile, that's the performance gap between Alonso and Hamilton, up to 0.8 of a second difference on lap 9. Hamilton pegged it at half a second again. It's been pretty consistently around about 6 or 7 tenths of a second anyway, and that is why Alonso's building what's quickly becoming a winning margin here.
Well, it's half a pit stop, isn't it, really, effectively? And there then,
Kubica at the inside of Rosberg. That's the battle we were talking about for 6th place. But Rosberg comes back at him, and Rosberg takes the place. So Rosberg up into 6th.
Isn't Rosberg driving well this year? He drove beautifully in Melbourne, and another good aggressive race performance from Nico Rosberg. Looks a different man to it looks like he did in Bahrain last year in the first race, doesn't he? And never really quite looked the same again.
Yeah, he came here last year and qualified 3rd on the grid, but we never really got to see what he would do in the race because he retired very early on. Sounds like Kubica's got a problem. Certainly Rosberg is getting away at a real rate of knots.
Yeah, there's a misfire going on there with Robert Kubica's car. Quite a bad misfire, either TC cutting in too early, traction control cutting in too early with a malfunction, or some other engine malady.
He's 3 seconds a lap slower than Rosberg in the middle sector alone. Kubica in trouble here in 6th place, and he hasn't scored any points since Monza last year. Had that wonderful podium, but since then his luck has been atrocious. Now he's forming a train behind him. You think he's going to dive into the pits? Yes, he does. Fisichella coming through. He goes up into 7th place then. The Renault's looking a little bit better in race trim than they did in qualifying trim. Although the lap times aren't spectacular for Fisichella. But nevertheless, he's up into 7th place and in with a shout here. Some good points. Lap 12 of the Malaysian Grand Prix. We have a McLaren leading here. Fernando Alonso, the reigning world champion, is out front on lap 12 by almost 11 seconds from teammate Lewis Hamilton. Alonso started alongside Felipe Massa on the front row, but he took the lead at the start, and Hamilton managed to get in front of both Ferraris. Wonderful driving by Lewis Hamilton. He's been under intense pressure, first from Felipe Massa, who made a mistake trying to pass him and went off the racetrack. Massa is back in 5th place, and now he's under pressure from Kimi Raikkonen, but he is doing a sensational team job for McLaren, and that Ferrari keeps getting further and further away from Fernando Alonso. 12 seconds now, and before too long Alonso's going to have a pit stop in his pocket advantage, and there is Massa behind Nick Heidfeld in the BMW, who is 4th. Robert Kubica has got some sort of problem. He's dropped from 7th down to 11th. We saw him struggling a little bit, came into the pits, and he's back in 11th. Now, we've lost 2 cars in this Grand Prix. They're both spikers, and the technical director of that team, Mike Gascoigne, is with Louise.
And it was a rather fiery exit for Christian Albers. Tell us what happened.
Earlier on in the lap, he'd got stuck in 3rd gear. He tried to bring the car back to the pits, but obviously he's running at very high revs for a long time, and basically it overheated and caught fire coming down the pit lane. So not a great day.
And Adrian, was that a technical issue, or did he just run out of track?
No, I think there was some contact with someone at the first corner, and further around the lap, something broke at the rear.
Thanks, Mike.
Cheers.
David Coulthard under pressure from Alex Wirtz. Coulthard going defensive into turn 4. Wirtz trying to go round the outside, and he makes it. Coulthard very much under pressure now from Ralf Schumacher too.
That was the corner where Massa tried to pass Lewis Hamilton on 2 occasions. The first time he tried it, he ran a little bit wide and Hamilton got the place back. The second time, he went off onto the grass and allowed both Raikkonen and Heidfeld through. Exactly the same corner. There's another look.
Yeah, DC puts himself up onto the middle, slightly less grippy line, and Wirtz has got enough confidence and grip just to go clean around the outside. Massa's error there was he tried to overtake Lewis twice effectively. He had him hung out to dry on the outside and then tried to outbrake him as well, which he didn't need to do. It's an easily done thing, I have to say. It's a mistake we all made, but you never need to overtake them twice. Just get them out of position and take away their ability to turn in, and you don't need to outbrake them as well.
Well, just looking down the field as we look at this ongoing scrap here between Heidfeld in the BMW in 4th and Massa 5th. Robert Kubica is dropping right back now. He's down into 19th place. The poor guy, he's had such a run of bad luck since that fantastic podium last year in Monza. Hasn't scored a point since. And who else is not having a great time? Well, Jenson Button and Rubens Barrichello. Button is back in front of Barrichello. 17th and 18th they are in the Hondas, and lapping about almost 3 seconds a lap slower than the pace-setting McLaren of Fernando Alonso. I tell you who's going beautifully at the moment is Rosberg in 6th. He is lapping at the same sort of pace as Heidfeld in front of him, and as Lewis Hamilton actually, and that, the Williams does seem to be really coming good.
Yeah, Rosberg driving beautifully. Wirtz coming through in the sister Williams too. He's dispatched Coulthard and is now after the second Red Bull of Mark Webber. It'll be painful for Mark Webber, who left Williams to go to Red Bull, if a Williams cruises up behind him and overtakes him. But the Williams do look very, very well hooked up on this racetrack. Alonso has just put in another new fastest lap, 1:36.9. You can tell the track's green. We were expecting probably 1:35s as a race pace. They're beginning to come towards that. His lead was 12.6 seconds, is now up to 13.4 as they head into lap 15.
Yeah, well, we said that the tyres do lose their performance quite dramatically in the early laps. We were seeing laps in the mid to high 1:38s. Now Alonso dips into the 1:36s for the first time. I tell you, there's another great scrap going on there as well for 7th place between Giancarlo Fisichella in the Renault and the Toyota of Jarno Trulli. And last lap, the lap before last, Trulli was actually quicker than Fisichella. He's now right up behind him. They're lapping in the low 1:39, so quite a bit slower than the top 6. But nevertheless, a good scrap there between the 2 Italian drivers. Meanwhile, talking about customer teams, the Super Aguris, which are basically running a version of last year's Honda, are ahead. Davidson and Sato are ahead of Button and Barrichello in this race. Davidson in 15th place, Sato 16th, Button 17th, and Barrichello 19th.
Hamilton's just had a bit of a scruffy lap, and that's put Raikkonen right onto his tail again. Tremendous pressure for the young Brit, but at the moment he's not making errors, but his car does seem a bit of a handful.
Well, they've put an awful lot of work in, the McLaren team, as has everybody else up and down the pit lane. There was the test here last week in Sepang, at which everybody brought development parts, new aero flip-ups, new bits of mechanical suspension and what have you. McLaren found some things they liked, and of course they're able to react so quickly in Woking and build new parts. Stuff was flown out here, fitted to the car, very late finish for the mechanics on Thursday night, but it's definitely made the difference. That large gap we saw to Ferrari in Australia closed right down here, and that is the top 8. Let's get some news from Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, down at BMW, this is about Robert Kubica. The engine's okay, James. The team at this stage, and it is early doors, think that it's a traction control problem. They've had problems with the wheel speed sensors all weekend, and they had a problem with it after qualifying. They had to change a wheel speed sensor on his car in Parc Fermé, so they think one of them's just gone haywire again. As I say, as it passes it by the pits, the engine note's fine. It's just in the corners and out the corners they got the problem.
Thanks for that, Ted. Just noticing that the white lines have gone from the back of Lewis's car. Just thinking in my mind, make sure he had 4 white line tyres on. I don't think there's any reason why they couldn't put hard tyres on the rear and soft on the front if they wanted. That's an interesting idea. I'll have a look at the regulations, but I think they're just plain worn through.
I think it's an interesting example of just how the rear tyres here in Sepang have been going off more quickly than the front. The white paint is painted on the actual base part of the tyre, if you like, and the tread, the top block, if you like, is on with the grooves. Is on the outside, so as that wears down, the tyres become virtually slicks as the grooves disappear effectively. So now, where the white stripe was on the inside of the groove is touching the tarmac, and that's why the white paint's gone. It's always been the case here at Sepang, and certainly with this 2007 generation of tyres, that it's the rear tyres that give up first. We've seen it last week in the test, and definitely again here this weekend during the Grand Prix. Well, if you're wondering why Fernando Alonso is a world champion, take a look at his last few laps. 37.0, 36.9, 37.1, 36.9, 36.9. Unbelievable metronomic consistency. He's just on a 1:37.0. So for the last 7 or 8 laps, his lap times haven't fluctuated by more than 1.5 tenths. And that is absolutely Swiss watch type consistency. 40 laps still to go here. The margin now between Alonso and Hamilton, 15 seconds. And I think this race very much swinging towards McLaren. You heard Mark Blundell in the build-up saying that if Massa was able to get some clear space at the front, he'd run off and hide. Certainly the Ferraris have been the quickest car here, but it's simply not worked out that way. And Alonso's tactic of running lighter fuel to get himself up amongst the Ferraris, try and mix it up a bit off the grid, has absolutely worked here in Malaysia. We're hearing from our pit crew that Alonso is going to make a stop very soon. This is lap 17.
Yeah, just trying to look at the regulations. For sure, Lewis did start with 4 soft tyres, but just for my own interest, I wonder if they could mix and match them if they wanted to do. I'll look into that. I suspect they can't. They've all got to be one homogeneous compound. And there's Ron there, seeming rather anxious that Fernando hasn't seen his pit board, or doesn't, maybe he's not anticipated to be in at the moment, and we're wondering if there are communication problems, and Ted may have more news.
There are communication problems. Ron is now pointing to his ear to Fernando Alonso's engineer Mark Slade in that has he heard me type way. Ron is now working the pit board himself, trying to, I don't know what he's going to put up there, come in for fuel, for God's sake, a message like that. But obviously radio problems with Alonso, and well, he could run out of fuel as the Ferrari comes in, Martin.
Yeah, it's Felipe Massa who pits from 5th place, and of course it was Kimi Raikkonen who won the race in Australia. He also had a radio problem, so it seems to be an increasingly frequent difficulty, certainly for race leaders. But we've seen it before, drivers don't notice the pit board, they keep on driving and run out of fuel. This is lap 18 that Alonso is now on, which is absolutely when we expected him to come in.
It's worked well for Massa, worked very well for him. He's out into some clear air, so this should get him past the BMW if he could have Heidfeld that he slipped behind with that error down at turn 4. Meanwhile, Raikkonen just half second behind Lewis Hamilton. Fernando Alonso, fastest man in the middle sector of anybody in the entire race so far, clearly pushing, hopefully, for the McLaren team on an in-lap. He's coming down that long back straight into turn 15. Surely he'll just flick right now and into the pit lane. He does indeed. So message received loud and clear. And whether they're reacting to Massa's pit stop, or whether they were just very concerned they weren't getting in contact with him. But anyway, he has got that message, and in he comes.
Well, he was half a minute up the road from Felipe Massa. Ferrari put a lot of fuel into that car. He's looking, he's indicating he can't hear anything. He's testing. Now he put his thumb up, Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, and Ron Dennis, that thumb up was to Ron Dennis, who's getting involved. Like, I've never seen him before, to Fernando Alonso, giving the old "can you hear me?" and then a kind of cutthroat sign as in, well, the radio's broken, Fernando, but carry on as you are.
Okay, Kimi Raikkonen in the Ferrari from 3rd place has also pitted. Lewis Hamilton is leading the Grand Prix for the 2nd race in a row. This is only his 2nd Grand Prix start, and he's led both of them. Amazing performance by him. Alonso, of course, made a stop. His fuel, we're not sure about how long the fuel was on for. We were so focused on the radio issue. Raikkonen He put a lot of fuel in the car, as did Massa. They're going to go for a very long middle stint, the Ferraris, to try and get back on terms with the McLarens.
Yeah, the traffic situation didn't work out quite as well for Raikkonen. Lewis Hamilton, that makes it even more impressive what he did down to the first corner, in terms of he had the heaviest car of all of the four front runners. Let's see how much further Lewis can go. It's unusual to see Ron not so much flustered, but feeling the need to get so involved. He's got an army of people who know exactly, fully briefed on what they need to do, but clearly Ron senses they can steal this Grand Prix away from Ferrari today.
Absolutely right, they can. It's been an amazing start to the race for them. Still a long way to go yet, and let's not forget, this is the toughest race of the year. Not just for the drivers physically, but also for the cars as well. And there is your race leader, 22-year-old Lewis Hamilton, a graduate of GP2 from last year. He's jumped straight into one of the most competitive cars in Formula One, and he is leading in Sepang. There is the leaderboard, the top 8. You can see Hamilton and Heidfeld yet to stop. Same with Rosberg, Fisichella as well. There goes the Williams into the pit lane. Raikkonen has stopped Kovalainen, who had a disappointing performance in Melbourne, as Rosberg comes down the pit lane. We're being told that Alonso only took on 6 seconds worth of fuel, which is a very short fill, so it's a short middle stint. He's probably using the tyre he least favours then in this stint, and then he'll use the one he most favours for the final long stint. He's going to try and lock it off, isn't he, this race, with a real sprint for this next period. It's six seconds worth of fuel isn't going to do many laps for him. Out comes Rosberg, behind Massa. And with several cars yet to make their stops, I believe that puts him back in 9th place now, Nico Rosberg.
Yeah, but looking good on that, though. I mean, he didn't appear to be that close to the Ferrari, did he? Prior to the rounds of pit stop starting. So Hamilton leads them. We're on lap 20 from Heidfeld in the BMW. Alonso has stopped, filters back in 3rd. Rosberg showing 4th at the moment. He'll slip back down when the computer catches up with his pit stop. Fisichella has not stopped. He'll be up to 4th. Raikkonen then 5th, having stopped.
Yes, and crucially for Raikkonen, he's held up behind the Renault of Giancarlo Fisichella. So that's going to cost him even more time. He's been sat behind Lewis Hamilton for a long period, and now he's tucked up. There comes the race leader, really pushing it hard on his in-lap, Lewis Hamilton, learning all the lessons from his teammate Fernando Alonso about really pushing the in-laps and the out-laps. All of these little tiny details are the difference between an also-ran and a champion.
Turn a front wing. I don't know which way there was. Looking at the way the car was handling, I'd have thought they'd taken some front wing off. But anyway, we'll find out how he goes now. There then is teammate Alonso. It's 50 miles an hour down the pit lane, 80 kilometers per hour. He's going to come out comfortably in front of the Ferrari, and still a good way behind his teammate. The Ferraris are tucked up in the Renaults there, and Massa a long way back down the field.
Lewis Hamilton putting 7.4 seconds worth of fuel in. That's more than teammate Alonso, so he's going longer, as he did in the first stint. But it's going to be very interesting to see how this race shakes out. Where is Hamilton going to finish relative to the two Ferraris? A long, long way to go here. We're yet to even reach half distance in Sepang. There's the race leader then, Nick Heidfeld, who has taken over, yet to make his first stop in the BMW Sauber. So he is out the front. Teammate Robert Kubica, there he is, in the front of a long train here. 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th and 18th places tucked up behind him. Sato's in the middle of that. So is Davidson, Ralf Schumacher, Scott Speed, Rubens Barrichello, all tucked up behind the BMW of Kubica, who sounded like he had a gearbox problem earlier on. Here's Ralf Schumacher having a go at, I believe, Scott Speed for 16th.
Speed's pitted as well, so Ralph a long way back down the field. Don't know what's happened to him. Good clean overtake. Speed having a sensible pill and realising he's lost that place. Webber pits then for Red Bull. So who hasn't pitted yet? Heidfeld has not, and nor has Fisichella. David Coulthard either. There's just the 4 cars, who have yet to pit. Heidfeld, Fisichella, Kovalainen, the 2 Renaults, David Coulthard.
On board with Ralf Schumacher again, having a look at the back of Rubens Barrichello now. Jenson Button's made some progress. He's up into 11th place. He's just dived into the pit lane, so he will come out behind this battle. There he goes. That was Button just coming out on the right-hand side. And Ralph goes up the inside, does he, of the Honda? Toyota versus Honda. Whoa. There's no love lost between these two, of course. In the old Ferrari-Williams days, they hit each other very frequently.
Hamilton's much faster now, much happier with the setup of his car on the ILAP. He's suddenly taken plenty of speed out of those fresh tyres. Lewis Hamilton very fast indeed after his stop.
This is lap 23 of the Malaysian Grand Prix from Sepang. The race leader, the previous race leader, because of fuel stops, was Nick Heidfeld. He's just come back out again. On aggregate terms, he will slot back in around 4th or 5th place. The leader of this race on merit is Fernando Alonso, as you can see, now that most of them have made their stops. Fisichella still up there in 3rd, yet to make his first stop in the Renault. Hamilton, though, has just set the fastest lap of anybody in the race so far. He's pushing very, very hard in 2nd place to try and catch up his teammate. We've got the Ferraris of Kimi Raikkonen and Felipe Massa not running away at the front as expected, and the reason for that was all about the start. The 2 McLarens much sharper into turn 1 than the 2 Ferraris, and Alonso was able to take the lead. Lewis Hamilton got in front of both Ferraris, allowed Alonso to get away and open up a big gap, and McLaren have really capitalised on that so far, but we're yet to reach half distance in this race, and we're waiting to see Ferrari's response. We know that they're going to run a longer middle stint than the McLarens. That's their attempt to get back on terms, and now it's up to Alonso and Hamilton to really put the hammer down.
Yeah, but Hamilton's only 11.5 seconds behind now, lapping thick end of a second a lap faster than Fernando Alonso. We saw them adjust the front wing. He put on a new set of tyres, and it seems that Hamilton is much, much happier with his car now. And on this lap alone, he's already another 4 tenths up on his teammate. And indeed, he is 6 tenths faster at the end of the lap. Now just 11 seconds adrift. Alonso, we saw him having a bit of drama with radios. I wonder if he's lost time out of there. We thought he short filled, but it seems like he did put a good chunk of fuel in. He was 20 seconds clear, remember, before the pit stops. Now he's just 11 ahead.
I take it you can see them. Good work, Rubens. Now come on, settle down. People have all stopped, so we need to get into a rhythm.
That was Jock Clear, the race engineer of Rubens Barrichello, enormously experienced man, and I was talking to him only this morning about the days when he used to engineer Jacques Villeneuve back in '97 at Williams when they won the World Championship, and those were the days. But now at Honda it's a slightly bigger challenge. They certainly want to get themselves back up there, but at the moment they're battling over 14th and 15th places. Hamilton absolutely flying out there, 6 tenths faster than Alonso on that last lap. He's in 2nd place. Raikkonen is 3rd for Ferrari. Fisichella has made a pit stop from 4th. That will allow Heidfeld and Massa to go back past him. It'll be interesting to see where Fisichella comes out. He's probably just behind Rosberg, I'd imagine, in 7th place. Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, another problem which will slow down Alonso is that because the radio is broken, the team now can't tell him to change the buttons on the steering wheel because two-way telemetry isn't allowed. It's the driver who has to change all things like diffs and engine map settings like that. So Alonso's stuck with what he's got. But just as we look at Jenson Button, he was on the hard tyres at the beginning, now he's on the soft. This is the time for him to make his moves.
Yeah, it's a shift-to-shore system. They can't change the car from the pits, otherwise they could speed it up or indeed, of course, slow it down when it suited them. But Alonso should pretty much know where he wants to put his buttons. but he'll be looking at his pit board and getting a bit of a hurry up, although that time around Alonso and Hamilton absolutely matched on a 1:37.9, but clearly Alonso not quite as comfortable, and the Massa did not get past Heidfeld, so it's ended up the top 5 are exactly the same. Alonso, Hamilton, Raikkonen third, Heidfeld fourth, then Felipe Massa in the Ferrari, Nico Rosberg sixth, David Coulthard seventh, and the only man yet to stop.
That was a look at Nick Fry, the team principal of Honda, a man who's banging a few heads together at the moment as they try and rediscover their competitiveness, because this time last year Jenson Button came here, started on the front row, got a podium. He'd been on the pole in Australia, and well, they fired Jeff Willis, the technical director, midway through that season, and I don't know if it's unconnected, but certainly at the start of this year they're absolutely nowhere. A lot of work to do at Honda then. Meanwhile, Hamilton a few hundredths of a second faster on that last lap than Alonso, both lapping in the high 1:37s. And well, Kimi Raikkonen, you know, he lost a lot of time behind Fisichella. He lost about a second a lap behind Fisichella for 5 or 6 laps, I would say, in the run-up to that pit stop of Fisichella's.
Feel free to have a go, Ralph. We haven't got much to lose.
We haven't got much to lose. In other words, if you trip over him, well then we're not going to score any points anyway from P16, so have a go. Yeah, I don't know how I'd receive that if I was out there trying to drive the car, but they're lapping about 2.5 seconds off the front running pace. That's the kind of improvement they've got to make at Toyota and Honda, although Jarno Trulli is about a second and a bit off the pace in the leading Toyota at the moment. He's up in P9.
Well, we're in the phase now where the tyres have gone off a little bit on performance-wise. Alonso and Hamilton dropped in back into the 1:38s, but just looking at Raikkonen, who is in third place, of course we know he put a lot of fuel in that car, so it is very heavy, and every lap's worth of fuel you carry around here slows you down by a 1/10 of a second. We know he's going quite a bit further in this middle stint, so at the moment he's making absolutely no impression on the McLarens at the front. They're pulling away from him at half a second a lap. They certainly were helped by Raikkonen getting stuck behind Fisichella, and really at the moment you have to say it has all worked out beautifully for the McLaren team, and we've seen how Ron Dennis, the team boss, is getting emotionally involved in this one, coming off the pit wall, making personally sure that everything happens. He is so up about this championship. He has these 2 wonderful drivers. He's really excited in a way that we haven't really seen for many, many years, and well, it is great to see.
Yeah, Hamilton now a full 10 seconds ahead of Raikkonen. We saw before the pit stops began, Raikkonen was on his gearbox, so it has worked out very well for Lewis in terms of his in-lap, his pace into the pit lane, into the speed line, the stop, and of course Raikkonen, as you say, James, held up in traffic too. So this put the Ferrari 10.6 seconds back at the moment, and he's lapping more slowly than Hamilton. This is giving Hamilton a bit of a breathing space for the first time in this entire Grand Prix, although he's managed to lock his front wheel there going into turn 1. Kimi Raikkonen is coming halfway down the pit straight. The camera foreshortens this. It's a very, very long straight. And there then is Felipe Massa, 3 seconds behind 4th place man Heidfeld. He's doing a solid job for BMW.
Well, it's very interesting. There's Felipe Massa as we take a look at a slow-mo replay of Kimi Raikkonen using all the curve and a bit more, almost going up onto the grass. And you look at Massa, and he's got Rosberg just over 5 seconds behind him in the Williams, riding on board with Ralf Schumacher here down in 15th place. So that Williams is keeping the Ferrari honest there, absolutely no doubt about it. Massa's running in clear air. He's 3 or 4 seconds behind Heidfeld in 4th place, and it's just not happening here for Ferrari. It's as simple as that. Alonso leads by 10 seconds. Hamilton's catching him. Raikkonen's 3rd, Heidfeld's 4th, Massa's 5th, Rosberg is 6th. David Coulthard pits from 7th, which means Fisichella moves up into that spot, and Trulli rounds out the top 8.
1:28. Alonso's lead now just to under 10 seconds. So that's 1.8 seconds Hamilton's taking out of him. And Alonso very clearly not going as well in this phase of the Grand Prix since the change of tyres and a bit of a refuel. He was waltzing away earlier on, and suddenly the tables have turned. There's a slow-mo of Lewis Hamilton down into turn 1, just locking that right front, and of course pushing a tyre along stationary at 100 miles an hour, just burns a patch off it. Smoke goes up into the air, and then it's got a nasty vibration. An incident like that as the BMW pits, and slightly out of sequence, I would have thought, so we're expecting that to be Kubica, who pitted quite early, and it is indeed, he pitted quite early in the race with a problem. But a little lock-up like that, you will feel it, you'll feel the vibration, but it won't be a big drama for Lewis Hamilton.
Changing a nose is a bit more of a drama for Robert Kubica, who's had such a tough race here. Seemed to be struggling earlier on with drive, came into the pits. They obviously reset something there, as it gave him some tyres and some fuel at the same time. He's back out again, having taken on a new nose, and the bad luck run continues for Kubica. Just can't make it happen for himself. Teammate Heifeld, meanwhile, up in 4th place and looking very good once again. Considering the car he's got under him, Heifeld, he's going to be a candidate for driver of the day at this rate. Only 4 seconds behind the Ferrari. Very impressive drive by the bearded Nick Heifeld. Exactly at the halfway stage in the Malaysian Grand Prix in Sepang. There is Fernando Alonso just getting a little bit hot under the collar at one of the Toro Rossos as he goes through to lap him. Well, Alonso has led this race pretty much since the start, apart from the pit stop period. He's been out front. He managed to pass Massa off the start line. Massa starting from pole position. There's an indication of how Lewis Hamilton is catching him at the moment, though. The gap now down to just 8.7 seconds as Hamilton comes across. Hamilton managed to pass Massa as well, and Raikkonen into turn 1. So it was a McLaren 1-2 in the early stages of the Grand Prix. And what happened then was Alonso scampered away. Lewis held up the two Ferraris to give Alonso a really nice big margin, and then Massa made a mistake, 2 mistakes in fact, trying to pass Lewis Hamilton. The first one he got away with, the second one cost him dearly. He went off onto the grass and lost places to Raikkonen and Heidfeld, and basically he's not really recovered from that. Felipe Massa, the pole sitter, then back in 5th place, half a minute behind Alonso. Raikkonen, well, he couldn't get past Hamilton either, and then he got held up by Fisichella during the pit stop period, so he is now 20 seconds behind race leader Alonso in 3rd place, and it's just not really working out for Ferrari tactically. And I'm sure we'll be asking the question afterwards with Steve and Mark, but you have to wonder whether they're missing Ross Brawn there, because you'd have to say that tactically it's not been their most astute performance for Ferrari. In contrast, McLaren have got it absolutely spot on.
Yeah, but their tactics fell apart when Lewis Hamilton nailed both Ferraris in turn 1 and turn 2 at the start of the Grand Prix. That's where it went so badly wrong for them, and Hamilton was then struggling for pace, which he certainly is not doing at the moment. Alonso's really having to push hard now to match him 10 for 10 through the various sectors of the lap. Hamilton now just 8.4 seconds behind Alonso, 12 and a half ahead of Raikkonen.
Ribbons, we are sticking to plan. We're sticking to plan. The numbers don't add up for an extra stop.
So that means maybe they're going to 1 stop, or maybe they're going to carry on doing 2 instead of 3. Rubens has probably been on the radio saying, I can't cope with it, do something with this car, give me a fresh set of tyres. And whatever he asked for, the answer is no.
Well, we talked earlier on about the physical challenge of Malaysia. 56 laps around here, an hour and a half in the baking heat. It's 54 degrees track temperature, 34 the air temperature, with all these long corners just sapping you. Dehydration as well well. They lose about 4 litres of body fluid during the course of a Grand Prix. It'll be very interesting in the closing stages to see how Lewis Hamilton's fitness holds up. I'm told by the doctor at McLaren, whose name is Aki, as a former Finnish Olympic doctor, that Hamilton is an absolutely superb athlete, as good as any you'd find in the Olympic Games. He's got that kind of physique that can take the stress and has the stamina to do it. So we're expecting no problems for him, but it is a supreme physical test. And in the closing stages, that's when the concentration starts to go and the fatigue starts to creep in, and that's when the mistakes start to happen because you're dehydrated. Well, what's going on at Ferrari? They're third and they're fifth. They got jumped at the start, we know, but don't seem to have got it right at the stops. Maybe Ted Kravitz can tell us a bit about it.
Well, James, I've just been into Ferrari and I've been asking that question exactly. Why aren't you very quick? And they're a bit bemused. They said, and this is a quote, "The difference is not one that we've seen so far this weekend in practice or in qualifying," which is putting it mildly. But they do feel, as you said, that they were badly compromised by that first stint where they thought they'd get ahead and they'd be able to build up a bit of a gap. So that kind of ruined their race and they haven't been able to get back. No particular problems with the car, but the drivers just can't drive it very quickly. It's just not quick enough at the moment.
Well, at the moment, part of the reason why they're not as quick is because they've got more fuel in the car. They seem to be picking the pace up a little bit now, and on that last couple of laps, Raikkonen and Massa were both lapping in low 138s, and given that they've got, in my estimation, about 7 or 8 laps more fuel in the car, that means they are actually fuel adjusted quicker than the McLarens at this point in the Grand Prix. The problem is they've lost so much time earlier on.
Hamilton has just nibbled another 10 out of Alonso's lead, down to 8.3. I'll go through the 20 remaining runners for you. Let you know how your favourite driver's doing. We'll listen to this first.
Echo, please go to mode 4. Mode 4 for 3 laps for the engine. Mode 4, please.
For the engine, suggesting it's to give it a bit of a breather, and maybe it's running a bit hot. So Alonso leads then from Hamilton second, Raikkonen third, Heidfeld fourth for BMW, Massa, Ferrari fifth, Rosberg, another storming drive in sixth for Williams, Toyota, Fisichella seventh, apparently possibly on a one-stopper, Trulli eighth for Toyota, Kovalainen ninth for Renault, under pressure from Wirtz in the second Williams, who's 10th. 2 Red Bulls, Linus Stern, 11th, Webber, 12th, Coulthard, Barrichello, 13th, Button, 14th in the 2 Hondas. Speed for Toro Rosso is 15th, Sato 16th, and his teammate Davidson 17th, just behind him, 2.6 seconds behind him in fact. Liuzzi Toro Rosso 18th, Ralf Schumacher, having pitted twice, is 19th. He has to have a faster car than that, doesn't he? And Kubica, with all sorts of dramas, out of sync on his pit stop, is 20th and the final runner. The 2 spikers are out, one spinning off on the first lap and the other with some kind of fire or engine drama. Albers and Sutil.
Well, Davidson was in front of Sato in the early running, so obviously Sato's got past him and he's now 2.5 seconds in front of him. And as for Ralf Schumacher and Jarno Trulli, they started next to each other on the grid in 8th and 9th places. Trulli is still in 8th place, but Ralf Schumacher, as you said, is down in 19th place, so not such a good day for him. It's very interesting. I can't believe that Fisichella can do a one-stop. Given his lap times at the moment, they're competitive with the Williams. Mid 1 minute 35s, he'd be slower than that if he was fueled to the finish, surely. But that will make life very interesting with the battle between him, Trulli, Kovalainen and Wirtz over the final points here this afternoon. That will be really worth watching later on, I think, because it's going to get very tight between those cars. Yes. Certainly not tight at the front, though. Alonso, Hamilton, 8 seconds the margin, but 21 now. Raikkonen is behind the race leader, Alonso.
We're heading towards a pit stop advantage for Fernando Alonso over the Ferraris. You have to assume, as we're now 33, on that 33 of this 56 lapper, that Hamilton would be requested, if he were able to catch Alonso, to at least hold station. And with the 2 Ferraris out of position in 3rd and 5th. Alonso, lap 33, leads Lewis Hamilton by 8.3 seconds.
So, a long way to go to the finish here. There is Liuzzi in the Toro Rosso, going to be lapped by Lewis Hamilton. Liuzzi down in 18th place. The race leader, Fernando Alonso, holding station really now, those two, lapping in the low 138s.
Okay, brake pedal starting steering column. Brake pedal and steering column.
Something about brake pedals and steering columns. Doesn't look like much fun. Coulthard lapping in the mid 1 minute 39s. Teammate Webber is in front of him in the high 138s. So he lost 0.7 of a second on that last lap to Webber. They're following each other, 11th and 12th places at the moment.
Yeah, the brake pedal is remarkably close to the steering column that runs often down between the two pedals actually to the steering column. And this is one of it. So clearly he's not getting a clean sweep on the brake pedal. There's something moving. That's a bit scary when that happens. There can be no small incident when either you have a steering problem or a brake problem. They're only two together.
So there is Massa, still tucked up behind Nick Heidfeld in 5th place. I wonder what's going through his mind at the moment. He should have enough of a speed advantage to at least have a go at Heidfeld, but he seems content to grind it out, knowing that he's going to be running longer on the fuel. Try and pick the place up later, but that mistake he made trying to pass Hamilton has cost him dearly.
I'm not comfortable, guys. I think we should retire the car. Understood.
22 laps to go here in Sepang, Malaysia. David Coulthard's got a problem with his brake pedal. He radioed in to the team that it seems to be rubbing against the steering column. He's had a few problems getting the car slowed down in a few corners. You're riding on board here with Felipe Massa. The story so far of this exciting Malaysian Grand Prix, McLaren up front. They got the jump at the start. Alonso took the lead from Massa. Hamilton also managed to pass Felipe Massa, the pole sitter, into the opening two corners. He then held up the two Ferraris for quite a long period of time, allowing Alonso to build what is now beginning to look very much like a winning margin in this Grand Prix here. Through the pit stops, Ferrari not able to really do anything, and as a result of a move that Massa tried to make before the pit stops on Lewis Hamilton to take that second place, he went off onto the grass and dropped himself behind both Raikkonen and Heidfeld. He has not recovered from that. He is still down in 5th place, half a minute behind race leader Alonso. At the moment it's very much advantage McLaren. We've got 20 cars still running here. We've lost the two spikers of Albers and Sutil, and other drivers worth mentioning are having a great day here this afternoon. Nick Heidfeld, who is absolutely fantastic in the BMW, in 4th place. Massa can't get past him, and he's only 7 seconds behind the Ferrari of Raikkonen. And Rosberg, who's holding on to the Ferrari of Massa, just over 6 seconds behind him in 6th place.
Massa's catching Heidfeld quite quickly now, and they're coming up to a lot of traffic. So Heidfeld could come under the most pressure he has been for a while from the second Ferrari of Massa. Massa really needs to make something stick here to do something better with his afternoon. Several drivers have been in for their second stops. Burt's probably being the best placed one of them. He's then back down to 12th after that stop, but still going very well in the Williams Toyota. But Heidfeld then has lost a couple of seconds to this Ferrari in the last 2 laps.
Well, looking at the lap times at the moment, Raikkonen in 3rd place is lapping at the same pace as the two McLarens, and we think he's got a fair bit more fuel in the car than them. So the speed is in this Ferrari. They were definitely compromised by what happened at the start and being held up behind Hamilton. It was a tactical game by McLaren and by Hamilton. It worked perfectly, but certainly McLaren have made some gains as we take another look at that lock-up for the Red Bull. McLaren have definitely made gains. They are closer to Ferrari on pace, but judging by the way things are going at the moment, I think the Ferrari is still the quicker car. It's just that it's not working out for them tactically this afternoon.
Bit of an error there from Felipe Massa, went in a bit hot to turn 1. He's steering at the back of. They're coming up to Kubica to lap him. Kubica with misfire problems made an early pit stop, surprised the team. Rear tyres weren't ready. Been a miserable afternoon for him, and he'll have to simply leap out of the way when the blue flags start waving as he is about to be lapped by his teammate. That's a recurring nightmare for any driver, to get lapped by your teammate, almost whatever the circumstances.
Well, those of you who follow Grand Prix racing closely will be aware there's been a discussion about flexible floors, an aerodynamic advantage, the floor flexing at top speed and giving perhaps some advantage there. And well, after the Australian Grand Prix, McLaren raised the issue. They don't use it, and obviously one or two teams up and down the pit lane did. Ferrari were one of the teams, and that they changed a small part of a spring apparently on the car. Everybody had to change something, but the people who had to change the most were Red Bull, Honda and Renault apparently. But it was they were changing things on the floor. Ferrari just something on the little spring system. Everybody had a little something to do. Has it harmed their competitiveness here? Hard to say really, just judging by the way the race has gone. They still look pretty fast, and I'm sure we'll see that again in Bahrain next weekend. Little lock up there for Felipe Massa, but certainly for sure the performance of McLaren has caught Ferrari by surprise here this weekend. David Coulthard, we're being told, has retired from this Grand Prix. He was running in 11th place, but having problems with the brakes. I'm sure we'll hear from him shortly. But we're told he's out of this race.
Alonso, lap 38, his lead at the moment, down to 7.8 seconds now from Lewis Hamilton, although he appears to have the measure when he needs to of his young teammate Raikkonen, 20.7 seconds off the lead. But as you say, James, if you think, if you're right and Raikkonen's going 7 or 8 laps longer, then his pace is pretty strong, as we're on board with a Renault that's nearly overboard there, and he gets away with it.
Well, you can only go on the nozzle timings that we were given, and certainly if you look at what Alonso took on, it was about 8, well, we were told 6 seconds. It's obviously more than that. But Hamilton, he took on 7.4 seconds worth of fuel compared to the Ferraris, who took on 9.5 seconds and 10 seconds worth of fuel. So a lot more fuel basically for them. And it's certainly not going to be 6 or 7 laps, is it? Because we've only got 18 to go to the finish. Hamilton comes in on lap 39.
So that was quite a short fill then. It's quite a short fill they did there of Lewis Hamilton. He was last in of the top 4, and he's first in for the second round. He'll be refueled to the end of the Grand Prix. He's now got the harder, supposedly slower tyres. Remember, they have to use both types of tyre in the Grand Prix, and the Ferrari goes through, but not very far through if you think about it, in terms of Hamilton's already got his stop out of the way. It'll be very interesting to see the pace now. We're expecting it to be about half a second per lap slower on this harder tyre, the ones without the white stripes through the groove.
Well, it's going to be interesting now for Hamilton, because he's behind Massa, who's not going to stop for a little while, I think, and he's about 12 or 13 seconds behind Raikkonen, and you need about 22 to make a stop here, so hard to see whether or not it's going to cost Lewis Hamilton a chance of second place, but it's definitely worth keeping an eye on. Long way to go here. Louise, what can you tell us?
There's a problem with the steering column on his car locking. David is out of the car, but he has still got his helmet on, and the team are working on the car, and they're going to try and get him out again. So I'll let you know if they manage to do that.
Okay, could be a loose pedal face or something. The pedals, well, like everything on a Formula car, they're so tightly packaged that everything is in there. All sorts of torsion bars and shock absorbers too down the front of the monocoque there. Clearly, David Coulthard feeling something's interfering with the brake action. And he stopped off, and that's clearly put him out of any chance of some World Championship points. Teammate Mark Webber up in 10th at the moment, but he's yet to stop. Wirtz is behind him, who has stopped twice.
Okay, well, the information we were given about Alonso's first stop was clearly very wrong. It was a lot more than 6 seconds, because he's very much still out there in the lead, and therefore that tactic is not going to play out the way we expected it to. The Ferraris, though, well, they definitely took on a lot of fuel. And they're going deep into this race. Just 17 laps to go. Clearly, they don't want to use the harder tyre for any longer than they absolutely have to. So it's going to be a pretty short final stint for Alonso, Raikkonen and Massa. The crucial question as far as Hamilton is concerned is he going to get held up behind Massa? He is at the moment. He's 1.5 seconds behind him. And is Massa going to be used to try and get that extra place for Raikkonen by holding up Hamilton? We will see. We're riding on board with Felipe Massa, currently lapping in the mid-138s, which is a 1.5 seconds slower than Alonso at the front. To watch him like a hawk here. Making adjustments with his right hand just to the brake balance. McLaren, we're being told, whoa, he made an adjustment, Martin, to the brake balance, and the next corner he went deep and missed his braking point.
Yeah, he's still fumbling around down there, so Massa not comfortable. Alonso really attacked the line, but he doesn't need to, and Ted Kravitz is down there.
Yeah, Fernando Alonso, race leader, into the pits, and this should go well. It's the set of hard tyres going on at this stop. The McLaren boys go to work. About 60, 65 kilos of fuel go in. There's no problems with the stop so far, and that's very good. And just by the way, Fisichella will be coming in shortly for a second stop.
Thank you, Ted. There is Kimi Raikkonen coming down the main straight, but he has still got to make another pit stop. Alonso comes out behind him. There he is, coming back out into second place then, behind Raikkonen. Heidfeld, you can see coming through now in the BMW. He is third. With Hamilton there, he is in fourth, having made his second stop. Heidfeld has not made his second stop yet. In comes Massa.
Yeah, and the traffic works out beautifully for Fernando Alonso. Nobody in front of him apart from Raikkonen, who will surely pit quite soon.
So Massa only goes well, the same lap in fact as Fernando Alonso, and then he goes a couple of laps longer than Lewis Hamilton. How much further can Raikkonen go in this Grand Prix? He looks a bit out of sorts, doesn't he, Massa? The whole body language of his head and the car is just out of sorts. He's annoyed with himself for making that mistake early on in the race, and he's not really recovered from it. He hasn't had that fight in him, has he?
Doesn't appear to have done. I mean, he really shouldn't have let Lewis past anyway in the first place. He then passed him into this turn 4 and got it wrong, and Lewis ducked underneath him. He then went for the big move into turn 4 and got it completely wrong. So yeah, it's a catalogue of errors all surrounding Lewis Hamilton that's put Massa completely out of sync.
Looks like Ferrari are going to get ready for Raikkonen. And it was interesting, that Ferrari stop for Massa wasn't as fast as the McLaren stop for Alonso. So McLaren really sharp on the pit work. Ferrari not quite got the edge. Let's have a look how this one goes for Raikkonen.
22 guys. 2 or 3 on the fuel hose, 3 now on the fuel hose, 3 per wheel. Somebody to clean out the radiators. Jackman either end. Beautiful. Poetry in motion.
Very tidy. There goes the race leader. Alonso back through. Hamilton through as well. In first and second places, the 2 McLarens. Raikkonen will slot back into third place, so that worked out beautifully for Lewis Hamilton, who finished third in Australia and at the moment is on target to finish in second place. Nick Heidfeld is there at the moment, yet to make his second stop of the afternoon, but he will have to do it very shortly and will drop back behind. So there is the top 8 with 15 to go here in Sepang. Still got 19 cars on the track. 3 retired, Coulthard, Albers and Sutil, and Alonso is absolutely flying. His outlap a 1:36.861, his personal fastest lap of the race so far. I believe the fastest lap still held by Lewis Hamilton earlier on in the Grand Prix as Heidfeld pits from what was second place in the BMW. Where will he feed back in? Well, I think Alonso, Hamilton and Raikkonen have all gone through. That's Massa at the top of your screens, and Heidfeld will come back in front of him. So he's held the place. Massa has not taken advantage of it. It's just not happening for him today, is it?
Massa his heart would have sung a bit further there, seeing the BMW emerge. He must have expected it though. Nothing's happened to him that would have moved him forward. He would have hoped Heidfeld would have found a bit of traffic or made an error. Hasn't done so, so they're pretty much back to status quo. And Massa's going to have to push very, very hard now to get that 4th place.
Looking a bit further down the field, the Honda Works car of Rubens Barrichello in 12th place has been lapped. So has Jenson Button, his teammate, who's 2.5 seconds behind him as we jump on board with Button. And they've got themselves in front of the Super Aguris. Look at the G-forces, 4G are braking, and then the lateral G you see in orange. Braking G is in red. The lateral G, sideways G if you want, is in orange. Just watch it go red when he hits the brakes at the end of this straight. Into the closing stages of the Malaysian Grand Prix from Sepang. We're riding on board with Jenson Button, and we've got this wonderful G-force counter that shows you just how brutal it is driving a Grand Prix car around any circuit. But imagine that with also the heat of today. 33 degrees, the ambient temperature outside us. Oh no, Nico Rosberg! I was just about to say what a fantastic day he's having, and it looked as though Williams were getting on top of their reliability issues, which dogged them the whole of last season. He has been absolutely stunning today, running in 7th place. But 13 laps from the finish. I'm afraid that car looks like it's let go, and that's a shame because it was a wonderful drive by Nico Rosberg. Quick race recap for you. The 2 McLarens took it at the start. They managed to get past the Ferraris. Alonso leading, Hamilton in front of Massa and Raikkonen. He held them up. Massa had a go at passing him, couldn't do it, went off onto the grass, lost a couple of places, and he's had his head down, frankly, since then, Felipe Massa. I keep looking at his race and wondering what Michael Schumacher would have done in his situation. Tucked up behind Hamilton, a rookie, in 3rd place. I bet you one thing, he wouldn't be running in 5th place now, Michael Schumacher. If he was still driving that Ferrari, he would have made something happen for himself. Raikkonen, well, he's run a long middle stint. Alonso, Raikkonen and Massa all chose to run quite long middle stints. Hamilton a little bit shorter, and well, Ferrari thought it might take them in front of Hamilton. It didn't. Hamilton is still comfortably in 2nd place. Raikkonen is 3rd. Heidfeld is driving beautifully for BMW in 4th, ahead of Felipe Massa. Fisichella had a woeful qualifying, but he's up in 6th place in the race, going very nicely. And Jarno Trulli of Toyota is 7th. Heikki Kovalainen, we've hardly seen him at all. His team boss Flavio Briatore described his performance on his debut in Australia 3 weeks ago as a load of rubbish, but he certainly showed today that he's better than that. He's just 5 seconds behind his teammate in 8th place.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton's going to have to find a better way with these hard tyres. He's not been under the 1:39 bracket since he went out on them. He's now 16 seconds off the lead. Raikkonen just 6.8 behind him now, and lapping a second a lap faster. Hamilton, how it turns around with these tyre changes. Hamilton was the main man, wasn't he, in the 2nd phase of the Grand Prix? But in this 3rd phase, I don't know if he's just in traffic or what, but he's really struggling for pace. He's lost another half second in the middle part of this lap. So Lewis suddenly on his back foot, and he's going to have Kimi Raikkonen filling his mirrors at this rate anyway.
Well, McLaren leading the Constructors' Championship at the moment. It's looking good for them at the moment with Alonso up front, but they've still got 11 laps to go. And at this rate, he will get caught. Lewis Hamilton will be caught by Raikkonen in not too distant future. About 7 or 8 laps from now, at the current rate, straights, and so the final few laps will be quite exciting for him. On board the Red Bull with Mark Webber, outside the points in 10th place. He's a fair chunk of time away from the points as well. I don't think he's going to get anything out of today unless someone in front of him retires. He's 17 seconds away from Kovalainen in 8th.
Yeah, this is personal for Mark Webber though, isn't it? Wirtz effectively took his seat over at Williams. Now he's chasing him down the racetrack. And this could be for a point, because it's not out of the question we could lose somebody in front of them in the next 11 laps. So a good fight going on then. The sole remaining Williams of Wirtz in 9th, and the sole remaining Red Bull of Webber in 10th. David Coulthard did not return to the track after his braking problems.
Running a little bit different line there, from Alex Wirtz. You see the rev counter there, up to 19,000 RPM. New rules for 2007, engines limited to 19,000 RPM. You can't go any more than that. Of course, that has the effect of being pretty much a lot kinder on the engine. They were reaching 20,000 RPM, and we should see a lot less engine failures in 2007 as a result of it. It's one of the cost-saving measures. It's one of those things that the public doesn't really notice the difference between 20,000 RPM and 19,000 RPM, but it saves millions and millions and millions of pounds, which the governing body, the FIA, and its president Max Mosley quite rightly feel is completely wasted when they still sound good, they go very fast, and that's the most important thing.
Webber's much more confident on the brakes in the Red Bull. Plenty of black brake dust coming off that Williams of Alex Wirtz, and you just wonder if he's beginning to struggle in the braking zones in the Williams. Alonso now 18 seconds ahead of Hamilton, who's only 5.6 ahead of Raikkonen. We're going to have a big squabble on for second place between Lewis Hamilton and Kimi Raikkonen. They've now dropped Heidfeld, who still has the ever-present Felipe Massa behind him, 1.4 seconds behind him in 5th place. Fisichella in 6th, 23 seconds adrift for Renault, who's a minute off the lead as well.
Of course, the question, I mentioned it earlier on about this racetrack, you know, is it the hard tyres he's struggling to get a balance on, or is it the fact that he's done 46 laps in the sweltering heat? This is only his second Grand Prix, and frankly, he's a bit knackered.
Well, I'd be surprised if he is, but, you know, gym fitness and physical fitness compared to race fitness in these kind of conditions, it is a different deal. But I'd be very surprised if Lewis is struggling physically.
I would be surprised as well, but worth asking the question. Looking at him walking around a paddock, he looks like an athlete. And off the track goes the BMW of Robert Kubica. It's not been a great afternoon for him.
He makes quite a lot of mistakes, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Well, he's on and over the limit a lot of the time.
See who he's going to drag gravel in front of. You're going to be popular, chap, especially if you give somebody a puncture with that one. What can you do? You should brake offline. It's a bit of an unwritten rule, though. It's the famous turn 7 and 8, get it wrong on the way in, and there's 8 sort of pops up and surprises you. There's nothing you can do. But there's sort of a bit of a code that you brake offline, because that gravel all gets up underneath into the radiator ducts and the tongue underneath the floor, and you should move out of the way, brake hard, shovel it all out, and then carry on.
Well, regardless, look at those stones, everyone driving through them. Regardless of the situation of Lewis Hamilton and what's causing his lack of pace at the moment. The last lap 0.6 of a second slower than teammate Alonso. Only 0.4 though slower than Raikkonen, so he's pegged it a little bit. Yeah. Raikkonen is not catching him at the same rate, but with 9 to go here, just give us a little insight into what it feels like when you're at the end of a Grand Prix. That sort of tiredness starts to creep in.
You just want the guy behind to go away. You know, if you're as Lewis is now, he's pretty much nailed in second. He's not got a lot to gain. He's got plenty to lose with Raikkonen, and you come around and you see your pit board. Your only information really at this stage is your pit board in terms of how the other guy is doing. And just get off my back, leave me alone. But, Raikkonen doesn't look like he's in the mood to do that.
There you can see what has been happening that's been the last 3 laps, and you can see that Lewis has managed to bring the gap down, if you like. He's managed to resist the charge of Raikkonen a little bit more. It's still a fair chunk of time, 4.5 tenths of a second, but let's not forget, all the cars now are fueled exactly the same, because they've only got to get themselves to the finish, plus the in-lap from that. And so you can see that the Ferrari is pretty fast at the moment. It's matched by the McLaren of Alonso, though. So in pure performance terms, right now at this stage of the Grand Prix, there's nothing in it between the McLaren of Alonso and the Ferrari of Raikkonen. Well,
as Hamilton went through the Honda traffic, he lost another 6 tenths of a second. Raikkonen has dispatched one of the Hondas already, and Lewis is going to come under significant pressure if it carries on at this rate.
Kovalainen off the track, but something just flew off the car there, but not as bad as it was in Melbourne. This performance this weekend, out-qualifying his teammate Fisichella, and running reasonably strongly. What looks like a point for him in 8th place will give him a lot of confidence, but when you think of the pressure he's under in that team, he's the man who replaced the reigning world champion Fernando Alonso at Renault. And well, if you remember what Alonso used to do relative to Fisichella, and you'll see how much Renault have lost with Alonso moving on to the McLaren team. What's the margin now? Hamilton to Raikkonen, 4.2. He's trying to resist, isn't he?
Yeah, he's lost 4 tenths in this part lap alone. Liuzzi is 17th. There are 18 runners at the moment. Kubica's behind him, but he is just behind Anthony Davidson, who's having nothing like the weekend he did in Melbourne, unfortunately. And well, these two teams under a lot of pressure for running clone cars, and you have to say it's not really done them much good this weekend, has it? They're pretty much Super Aguri and Toro Rosso at the back of the pack. And there then is Rubens Barrichello between Hamilton. Hamilton has done a 38.3. That's his best lap for a while. 37.6 for Raikkonen. The gap down to 3.8 seconds. And it always helps when you can see the enemy and you sense you're catching them. And that's exactly what Raikkonen's just found out.
Always easier, I imagine, to be the hunter rather than the hunted.
Yeah. Running down that long, dark tunnel. Somebody coming running after you, but it looks further away than that, doesn't it? But it was just 3.8 seconds. Imagine a Formula 1 car travels an awful long way in 3.8 seconds.
Well, Jenson Button is receiving wave blue flags from the marshals around the racetrack. They've also got cockpit lights this year in Formula 1, so when he sees the blue lights come on, he knows that it's time to get out of the way of the faster car. And how hard is that for poor old Jenson to swallow? After his victory last year in Hungary and a very strong end to the 2006 season, Jenson started this year thinking he was going to be challenging for the World Championship. At the moment, he's challenging for 12th place behind his teammate Rubens Barrichello.
Louise has found Nico Rosberg.
Nico, you were having such a strong race. That's a huge disappointment for you.
Yeah, it's unreal. I mean, I can't believe it. I was pushing my bum off for the whole race. Had to turn down the revs already halfway through, more or less, or towards the end of the race anyway. I had to turn down the revs a lot. So I thought, okay, it should be all right anyway, and then just stops. I can't believe it. It's a pity anyway.
What stopped? Was it the engine?
It said hydraulics on my steering wheel. I have no idea what that means.
Thanks, Nico.
Yeah, it's always difficult to tell when there's smoke like that. As now there is no cars between Hamilton and Raikkonen, and the gap is down to 3.3. So it took another half second out of him, including passing Jenson Button somewhere out there. We did hear them earlier on, didn't we? Asking Nico for the engine, turn it down to position 4. So clearly something was creeping up on him in that Williams Toyota.
6 laps to go, 2 battles being launched by Ferrari drivers. Raikkonen is about to attack Hamilton. Massa is about to attack Nick Heidfeld for 4th place. Ferrari giving away points here unless they do so, unless they can get a little bit more out of this weekend. It's been another good weekend for McLaren, who are leading the Constructors' Championship at the moment. But Ted Kravitz, what can you tell us?
Down at McLaren, nervous tension down here. His engineer, Lewis's engineer, Phil Prue, just telling him just to keep the car together. But James, they have to balance the problems there. They have to balance the need to keep Kimi behind them, but also balance that with the fact that Kimi and Ferrari, they're also going to be worried about Kimi's engine, seeing as it overheated and lost water in Australia. So I have the feeling, though, Ferrari are just telling Kimi to go for it, never mind the engine, and Lewis is having to defend, but no particular problems with Lewis's car.
Yeah, well, Alonso will lead the World Championship if the results stay like this, and McLaren will very much lead the Constructors' title. They were anyway coming into this event by a point, so it's looking good for McLaren at the moment. They will be delighted if Lewis Hamilton can fend this off. On this lap, Hamilton's only lost 2/10 in the first two sectors, 10th in each. And over the line they go. Hamilton 38.3, but Raikkonen's really nailed the end of the lap at 37.8. He's now just 2.8 seconds adrift. He's much faster in that final sector, which is basically 2 straights and 2 corners.
And lots of braking.
Yep, 2 heavy braking.
I wonder if that's got anything to do with it. Something is holding Lewis Hamilton up a little bit relative to his teammate. He's over a second a lap slower than Alonso, who's very comfortable in the closing stages. He's 21 seconds up the road and he's still lapping 3/4 of a second faster than Hamilton and Raikkonen at the moment. So it's a huge test now for Lewis Hamilton. He's got to dig really, really deep in his reserves of self-confidence and self-belief and strength and hold on here in second place to give McLaren their first 1-2 finish since the Brazilian Grand Prix of 2005. Remember, they went through a barren spell lasting the whole of last season. They haven't won a race since the end of 2005, and how much do they need it and want it now? On board with Raikkonen.
Big test for Lewis Hamilton's head and physical condition now. If Raikkonen catches him, it'll be right at the very end, and we now know that Raikkonen is much faster in this final sector where the big overtake is going to happen, if it happens at all. And once again then, on this lap, he's 2/10 up so far as they head into this final part, but is he going to make another 4 now?
I talked earlier on about the psychology of overtaking, and this is something Ross Brawn and Michael Schumacher used to talk about a lot. It's the difference between fighting for a world championship and not fighting for one. Will Raikkonen think that Hamilton is fighting for a world championship if he runs right up the inside of him into the final corner? Or will he think, this is a risky one, the kid has got nothing to lose by having an accident with me? Not suggesting for a second that Lewis would want to start an accident, but if he misjudged it or if he turned across him by accident, that, Raikkonen would lose everything.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the psychology there in terms of all Kimi knows is he needs those points, and he can't afford to just give them away. They're 2 World Championship points that could prove critical. But at this rate, it'll be absolutely the last corner of the race if Raikkonen actually gets near him. He's got to get into that turbulent air zone yet. Louise has found David Coulthard.
David, any kind of steering issue is going to be a worry when you're in a Formula 1 car.
Absolutely, we had the same issue, unfortunately, that we had in Friday practice, that the brake pedal's fouling on the steering column, and it gets double effect. I lose, obviously, the braking, and lose a little bit of steering, so it was the only thing to do was to stop the car.
No points for Coulthard this afternoon, no points for teammate Mark Webber either at this rate. He's in 10th place behind Alex Wurz, who's 9th for Williams, and they are 17 seconds away from a point. The last points paying position at the moment, Heikki Kovalainen in the Renault, 8th. Alonso leads Hamilton, Raikkonen 3rd, Heidfeld 4th. Massa has dropped back a little bit from the back of Heidfeld now. In 5th place, 6th is Fisichella, 7th Trulli, and 8th Kovalainen. And the relentless Kimi Raikkonen stalks down and hunts down Lewis Hamilton across the line with 3 to go. The gap is down to 1.7 seconds, and Lewis Hamilton is really having to dig deep here.
As I say, Raikkonen's got to get that turbulent air zone, but at 0.6 of a second per lap, he will be right on him in the last corner. Can Lewis keep his head? Can Raikkonen find anything extra when he needs it? We know the Ferrari's quick in a straight line. We know it's great under braking. I think he's got the kit to pass him if he can get there.
What's fascinating about this is that Alonso is 22 seconds in the lead. The race is won effectively with 3 laps to go, and yet he's still lapping in the mid-1 minute 37s, which is the pace that Raikkonen's going at. Absolutely flat chat, trying to catch Hamilton. So Alonso clearly hasn't backed off, but that car is clearly performing very well, that McLaren at the front.
Yeah, still Lewis is not getting ragged though, is he? He's been under so much pressure in both of his Grand Prix so far, with Alonso chasing him for virtually the whole of the Australian Grand Prix. He's had a Ferrari menacing him through most of this afternoon, and still he's got the high ground. 2.5 laps to go, 1.7 seconds was the advantage, and Raikkonen's taken another couple of tenths out in the first 2 sectors, and this is where he's faster still. He'll pick up some slipstream, will be his first advantage. He'll pick up some straight line speed pretty soon actually, and then he'll move into the 4-5 tenth zone where he'll start to understeer and struggle.
Well, in Finland they have a word called sisu, and it means fighting spirit. It was embodied by Keke Rosberg, the first Finnish driver to really break through and make it in Formula One, and Kimi Raikkonen certainly has it as well. And this is a real test of his fighting spirit, and it's also a test of the heart of Lewis Hamilton. The last 2 laps of this Grand Prix, it's going to be a grandstand finish whatever happens here. Alonso is well and truly up the road. Massa doesn't look as though he's going to be able to do anything about Heidfeld for 4th place, so huge disappointment for him, following on from the disappointment in Australia where he was forced to start from the back of the grid. And he managed to come through into the points, got a 6th place finish in Australia, looks like 5th here, so not what he was expecting. But is Raikkonen going to chance a move on Hamilton in the closing stages here?
Hamilton's looked strong in this middle sector, very strong. He lost a tenth in the first sector, middle sector coming up after the sweeping right-hander of turn 10, and he's done his fastest of the Grand Prix so far. No, that's Raikkonen. He's taken another 2 tenths out. Raikkonen has found a bit of extra speed. Hamilton, though, still looking rock solid, and if he can just keep his head, Raikkonen is going to start feeling some understeer and instability soon as he gets into the turbulent air zone. And this is Massa locking a wheel, running really wide in turn 15, and that's not going to help him at all. The gap was 1.2, is now less than a second, it seems, as they head into the final lap.
He doesn't want to give him the toe. You see he's moving away to try and break the toe for Raikkonen down the straight. He seemed a bit slow in acceleration out of that final corner, Lewis Hamilton. This is the last lap of the Malaysian Grand Prix. Halfway rounded already is your race leader, Fernando Alonso. He's going to give McLaren their first victory since the end of 2005. But who is going to finish second? Will it be Britain's Lewis Hamilton or Finland's Kimi Raikkonen?
I think Hamilton's got it. If he doesn't make an error, he's got in just enough pace. And I think he should have track position and enough position to take the right line into turn 15 to give him a good run to the pit straight. And Lewis not feeling the need to hang it out to the ragged edge of the curbs there. You've got to be impressed with this kid, isn't it? He's just such maturity with so little Grand Prix experience, and absolutely brilliant driving.
He drives like a veteran. This is only his 2nd Grand Prix. He's led both of the races he's competed in. He finished on the podium in Australia in 3rd place. He is on at the moment for 2nd place, but at the front coming through is Fernando Alonso. What an absolutely awesome afternoon for him. Fernando Alonso, to his extreme pleasure, wins the 2007 Malaysian Grand Prix. What a massive blow struck by the McLaren team, and a phenomenal performance. Let's get a look at Lewis. Come on, where's Lewis? Is he holding on from Raikkonen into the final corner? There he is. Out of the final corner they come, and Lewis Hamilton comes through in 2nd place. What a fabulous performance by him. Raikkonen is 3rd. What a day, what a race.
Okay, let's think of the other places. Heidfeld should be hanging on for 4th. There he is in the back of the picture, well ahead of Massa, who's had a disappointing afternoon. Fisichella's looking solid for 6th, truly 7th. Kovalainen will take his first World Championship point in his Grand Prix career, and a much stronger weekend for Heikki Kovalainen, the sort of performance we were expecting from him. Good for him.
You're live on air, Fernando. Just remember, great job, Fernando. Great job, Fernando. I'm so pleased for you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. It has been a tough weekend for everybody. We sweat a lot in this hot, but we did it. Fantastic job again. You deserve it. we are there. Thank you so much. Perfect weekend again. Thank you.
Lewis was P2, so he took a few valuable points from yours truly.
Fantastic, fantastic. You deserve it, guys. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
You are the perfect guys, says Fernando Alonso. A wonderful performance by him. McLaren have a 1-2 finish, and well, we'll see the reaction in just a few moments' time. Taste of victory for Fernando Alonso. A wonderful performance by him. A lot of hard work by the McLaren team as well to close this gap. And what a day. Bit of heartbreak just outside the points today for the Williams team. Alex Wurz in 9th place. As you see Lewis Hamilton coming across in 2nd place. One step higher up the podium than he managed in Australia. And look at the kid. Absolutely loving every second of it. So there's the classification. 2 McLarens beat a Ferrari, a BMW, Ferrari, a Renault, a Toyota. As I say, Alex Wurz not far off the points, but far enough not to get one. Webber, he goes home empty-handed as well. Barrichello, again, the faster of the 2 Hondas this afternoon. He beat Button by just 0.7 of a second, but he was in front of him across the start-finish line. Sato in the Super Aguri, finishing just behind. Scott Speed, Ralf Schumacher, who was running in the top 8 in the early stages, but really faded. Has some sort of problem, I think, in a pit stop. Anthony Davidson some way behind teammate Sato. Liuzzi 17th for Toro Rosso and 18th Kubica.
Okay, Lewis, is everything okay?
Fantastic. Fantastic.
That's all right then.
Next step, I want to win. Doesn't matter if it's another next race, but sometime this year I'm going to have one.
That was interesting. Lewis Hamilton, sometime this season I'm going to have one. I want to win, he said. I'll tell you what, if he carries on driving like that, there's no doubt he will, and lots of them.
2 for 2 with podiums.
To a sweltering hot Sepang, Malaysia, where Fernando Alonso has won the Grand Prix, has taken the lead in the Formula One World Championship. Kimi Raikkonen is 2nd in the championship, but he couldn't get 2nd place here today because Lewis Hamilton put in a heroic performance, having given Alonso the chance to break away early on. Alonso loves his wins. He celebrates them with ludicrous body moves, but he really does enjoy it. It's his 16th, I think it is, career victory. His first for the McLaren team. And it really is a tribute to everybody at Woking who's worked so hard to make this car competitive. After Australia, they were some way behind. And look how quickly they've closed the gap to Ferrari. And this is going to be one heck of an exciting championship. The 2 teammates, they worked together early on. Hamilton let Alonso go. He got in front of the 2 Ferraris and allowed Alonso to build a large winning margin. And there is Ron Dennis. It's worked absolutely perfectly for the team.
Alonso just 2 races then, changing teams to McLaren to take a victory. Absolutely sensational. For Renault, must see him doing that walk. They're so used to seeing the little jig on the bonnet of the Formula One car. They're so used to seeing him do on their car, but it's now for McLaren. A 1-2 then for McLaren. Pretty solid point scoring for them today. Tremendous turnaround from the performances in Malaysia, where basically Kimi Raikkonen was just cruising staging from Australia, where Kimi Raikkonen was just cruising along. And you have to say today, Alonso took it comfortably.
There is Anthony Hamilton, Lewis's father, over his shoulder there with the glasses is Paddy Lowe, who's a very important man there in the McLaren equation. He's head of the vehicle operations, vehicle dynamics, all that kind of stuff. They don't really have a technical director at McLaren, but he's very important in the picture, as are men like Mike Coughlin and Neil Oatley back at Woking, who worked on designing this car. And here are the scenes. Look at Raikkonen. He looks tired as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, he looks ragged compared to Lewis, doesn't he? In terms of Lewis looks fresher than any of them, actually.
And look at Ron. You can tell with Ron's body language, he's not unhappy that he's got a 1-2 in front of his old driver. In fact, I'll turn my back on him just for good measure.
They're weighing the drivers now. They all have to be weighed with helmet, gloves, the whole lot. That's added to the weight of the car in Parc Fermé. And there's no doubt about it, Lewis looks the freshest of the three of them.
I feel fine, I can't understand.
He's leaning against the wall, you see. Time or the tactic. Fernando loves it, doesn't he? Well, he might. I'm not sure he expected to win the second Grand Prix of this season when he started, when he saw the pace of the Ferrari over testing and the first Grand Prix, but he's done it, and that says a lot about the kind of year we're going to have here, I think. As they step up onto the podium, I have to ask you, who's your driver of the day?
It's a tremendous victory, the 16th, as you say, for Fernando Alonso. Changes teams, moves on to the Bridgestone tyres, but the way Hamilton overtook the two Ferraris in the first corner, then held on, it's got to be Lewis Hamilton. Ferrari cockpit is hot. Kimi Raikkonen looks absolutely beaten up.
The Prime Minister of Malaysia.
Prime Minister then giving Alonso his 16th winner's trophy, and a very precious and very special one. So both Raikkonen and Alonso have switched teams over the winter, and they've now both won for their new outfits. We're up and running here.
It was always pretty clear, wasn't it? With along with Michael Schumacher, they were the three-class act for the last 2-3 seasons.
It's also pretty clear that they've been joined by another, the name of Lewis Hamilton. The way he kept those guys honest, very impressive. It won't be long before he wins a race. He said on the radio, apparently on the wind-down lap, I want to win this season. I want my turn. He's feeling it a bit though, isn't he? Fabulous performance by Hamilton. Third place in Australia, second place in Malaysia. Does that mean a win at the next race in Bahrain next weekend? Too much to expect, surely.
Fastest lap of the race too, 1 minute 36.7. 10th or 2 quicker than Alonso.
There's Raikkonen, slightly disconsolate, thought he was going to walk away with this one. It hasn't happened. Everyone's saying we should manage the expectations on Lewis Hamilton. He seems incapable of managing them himself as he goes to greater and greater heights. Well, it's been an exciting Grand Prix, interesting and effective tactics by the McLaren team. Hamilton is a hero, Alonso is a winner again. Coming here, everyone said Ferrari was on a different planet. McLaren have responded though, and it's game on for the World Championship.